Don't get too comfortable because God will rock your comfort zone.
You are a teacher's teacher. How did you find your purpose?
It kind of came to me. I think the first time I realized, we were at the Audubon Zoo in New Orleans, and this random kid walked up to me and held my hand, and I told the parents, I'm like, I'm not going to do anything. But I was a kid at that time too, but they were like, no, if he come to you, that means he feels comfortable. We're okay with that. But when it was time to depart, the child wouldn't leave, and I had to walk around with him the whole time. But I think I realized something was different with me with kids, but I didn't take heed right away. I actually was going to school at first to be a nurse, going to be a midwife. And I just love to see, like, when the babies first come out and their first breath they take. Something about that always amazed me. So I was like, I'm going to go to school for that, but God had other plans for me. And when I was going to school, I was offered a job at a preschool, and that's when I started working. I'm like, oh, I really like this, and still was continuing nursing school, but I realized the hard way that that's not what I was supposed to do.
Now, can you recall like your first teaching days and what that was like for you when you first started? Were you nervous, or were you just at ease because it was kids and you just had a connection?
I wasn't nervous, and I think it helped because the place I was working at, it was with one of our church members. She actually gave me the job, so it kind of made me feel like a little bit comfortable. And I think it just came naturally. I went to the classroom, and then whatever she needed me to do, I did. And then I learned from her as an older teacher some techniques and different ways of doing things also. So it helped me feel even more comfortable in the classroom.
What is the dream that you hold in your heart for the children that you teach?
I just want them to know God. I would do anything to teach them, any kind of way. I try to learn what they learn so that I can teach them on their level. And because they don't, like, a lot of children are into technology now, so I try to watch what they watch and see, like, what they're into, so I can kind of relate that to what they're learning and then relate to how God would teach them. Like Jesus taught object lessons too when he taught the disciples and the other people, so I try to follow his steps in that way.
So, you're on your job, you're teaching. When did you first kind of realize that you were kind of outgrowing your job?
I think during COVID. I think I was just going and going because it was just work and I had to do it. And then COVID happened and I realized I felt like I was bored. Like, I never used to get bored at work, but I felt like I was bored, and I was having moments when I really didn't want to be there. And I'm like, why am I feeling like this, And it wasn't the children. I think it's just the way things were happening. And then when COVID happened and we were kind of forced to either be home or work so much that it wasn't really about the children anymore, I think I really lost and thought, okay, I think it's time to do something, just go somewhere else or do something different. And I just kept praying, like, God, what should I do? That was my first question to him, like, what should I do? Am I still supposed to teach, or are you trying to tell me to do something different?
And so then what did God put in your heart?
I started applying at other schools, but I was like, is that what I'm supposed to do? And then randomly, I had 3 different parents who are not even, the children weren't even in my classroom, but then they just saw what I did outside of, because the school was made of glass. They just kind of see me in the classroom, and they were like, hey, if you're ever looking for a job, I know somewhere you can work. So I was like, okay, they gave
Nikia, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
So were there students in your class?
No.
Wow.
Nobody in my class, so that's why I was like, okay, maybe God's trying to tell me something,
Yes, so
Yeah.
then they made that determination to say, if you ever need a job, just by watching you?
Mm-hmm. They will see me, and like they will when they come in, we'll be doing our circle time. So they see us and the kids, and just they will always say, "I love what you do." Just even they wouldn't even hear us. They can't hear what we're doing. They could just see us through the glass. And it was COVID, so they really couldn't be in the classroom. But they were just like, "I'm sorry for interrupting," like just randomly. And I know God works in mysterious ways. So I'm like, "Okay, Lord, if that's what you want me to do, I will do it."
And that's even a lesson, Nikia, in our witness is not always in what we say.
Mm-hmm.
It's people observing us, and then just the passion that you have for the kids. So
Mm-hmm.
they saw you, they approached you, so then what happened?
Another parent came to me, and she's like, hey, if you really need a job, I know my school would love to have you there. And that time I felt like different when she said it. It was almost like, okay. And I knew what school she worked at. I know, I knew the school. And it's a school I would always look up and try to see if I could work there. But then I always see different things like, okay, what they were looking for wasn't what I was teaching or anything. And she was like, no, we have a position for you if you need it.
Now, isn't that something? Because first of all, you know it was God because they're approaching you while you're at work.
At work, yes.
So you already have a job.
Yeah.
So for them to even come up to you while you already have a job and it's something that you are praying about, then you had to pay attention.
Oh yeah, and especially because we never discuss what goes on, with what was going on in the building, like no matter what. And they would, even if I didn't like what was going on, I would never show it because I had children in the class. If I react in a bad way, they would have big fallouts, and they were more keen. Like if I had a bad day, and I usually didn't, but if I had something going on, they can feel it. So I always made sure that I was always on it about how I felt about what was going on. So just for them to come to me and say that, I was like, okay, I know this is God telling me to do something,
So how did you process or handle the no's that you were getting at first?
At first I was like, kind of sad at first, just because I'm like, okay, I thought this is what he wanted me to do. And then I was like, no, I know he has a plan, so I'm just not going to let that get to me. I'll just keep working until whatever he has for me comes. So what I did was I was just like, okay, no don't always mean a bad thing. It could mean something good, so I just waited.
You didn't get an attitude. You didn't let the sadness of it lead you into depression. You decided, you were going to wait on the Lord and renew your strength.
Of course, everything wasn't great, and it was some really tough times, but whenever I walked in that building, those children would never know what was going on, and I didn't want them to either. And plus, you don't want people to feel like why all of a sudden she's feeling like that, So, and people watch, especially if they're watching me and they're seeing me that, they were like, man, what's going on with her,
And
So,
would they had offered you the jobs if they
right.
saw you acting?
I don't think so.
See?
Yeah, and I always try to represent God, so the joy of the Lord is my strength. I made sure that I kept that strength in the building no matter what. Even when I would have that crazy boss coming to me and say things, and I would just be like, don't say anything. People always ask me, like, how do you deal with that? And I'm like, I really don't know. They would be coming to me like, girl, you got to pray for me. And so I know that, sometimes those type of things help other people get to know God too. So you don't want to be that person that's always down. How are they going to come to you about God if you're always down?
Okay, so you apply for this job, and you're like, I had a different feeling about this one.
Yes.
So then what happened?
I messaged the mother, and right away she was like, yes. I said, I remember you telling me about the job. Do you still have it available? And she's like, yes. And I said, well, how do I apply? And she's like, so just send your resume to this email address. And I sent it, because I already had updated it by then. So I sent it, and within days I received a message saying that they wanted to do an interview with me. I wore this jacket to the interview, and Dr. GreGory, because when I talked to him about me switching jobs, he's helped me like what to wear, what to say, and just to get things, and to keep my light about everything. So I wore the jacket to tell them that I wear bright colors and different clothing so to make it approachable for the children. And I said that in the interview and just kept going, and I guess they had a list of questions, and I answered it without them even asking me all the questions.
Wow.
And I can't tell you what I said because I really don't remember. I know God was just talking through me. After the interview ended, right away they were like, we really, really, really want to hire you, but you don't have that bachelor's degree that we need for this position. So I was like, okay, well, what would I have to do to get this job? And they were like, get the bachelor's degree, or we would need proof that you'll graduate within 6 months. So I was like, okay. And of course I was like a little down at first about it, because I'm like, oh, that bachelor's degree again. That was always the downfall. Like, I need that bachelor's degree to go higher into another position.
You've already gone to school, right? So you just needed like a financial piece for them to release the degree.
So I had a debt with them, with the school, and they were holding. They were holding it.
They were holding your degree because it's like, okay, you need to pay these crazy amounts.
Yes.
Okay, but you'd already gone to school for it, so it was just waiting.
It was waiting. Yes.
Okay, so what happened?
So I talked to Dr. Gregory after the interview, and he was like, "Why you just don't go to the school and talk to them about what you need?" And
Where
I'm
you
like,
went to school?
at the college I went to. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I went to the school that same day, and the crazy thing, it was pouring raining that day, but I didn't let that stop me, of course, you know. I went to the school, and when I first showed up, they sent me to this desk, and the guy was like kind of trying to blow me off, and he's like, "Oh no, we don't have anybody available there in the meeting." I said, "I drove here in the rain." I said, "I'm not leaving the school. You guys have given me the runaround so many times. I have called, and nobody can never have an answer, or they kept saying the same thing over and over, and it's not really helping me right now. So I need to speak to somebody today. I'm not leaving here until I speak to somebody." And then he's like, "Well, if you go up these stairs," after that, he changed his mind because he seen that I wasn't giving up about it. And that's, that week, that's when Dr. Gregory talked about the spirit of importunity. So I was making sure that I was like on it,
Yeah, you were being
Yeah.
assertive.
Yes. And I found out that the guy who they sent me to, wife used to work for the company I used to work for. And so it was like he was just talking to me about how she felt about the company. It was a good conversation because it helped progress things, He told me, like, he went into the system and he looked me up and he was able to see like I had been there so long and it was holding everything up. It was just that financial hold. But he was like, "I mean, we can see that you were really in school and passed all these classes." I'm like, "Yeah, really, everything's there. It's just been on hold because of that money." And I said, "I just need to know what I need to do to get it because my job that I'm getting." And I kept saying, I never said that I'm trying to get. I said that I'm gonna get this week. I said the only way I can get in there is with this degree, or if I have proof that I'm graduating soon. He said pretty much, "I'm going to email you all the information and I should be able to give you a graduation date by tomorrow." And he did. He sent it to me the next day. I just pretty much sent all this stuff to the school that I had applied to. And I said, "This is what's going on." I said, "This is all the information I have. It shows everything." And she contacted me right away and told me, "We want to have a conversation with you about possibly becoming staff here at the school."
So you got the job.
I got the job. Yeah.
So how did you handle leaving the job that you were at, closing that chapter?
Okay, so my plan was to do a 2 weeks notice, but God said different, and at first it was kind of like, okay, because I'm so used to like, let's do a 2 weeks notice and just end it like that. But he told me to leave right away, like don't do the 2 weeks notice.
And you were obedient.
Yeah, I was. Yes, I really was. Because usually you're like, okay, is this really the right way? Just because that's how we grew up, do a 2 weeks notice. But I was like, no, because I know if I don't do it, then they can mess up things for me.
Mess up things or talk you out of it.
Yeah.
I remember when I was going through a rough patch, and my mom said, "If you do it, you need to do it now, because if not, they'll talk you out of it." So you just have to be obedient and just get that strength to just cut it. I mean,
Yeah.
whoa, because
And it was
you have
hard.
these kids, you love
I know, that was the
kids.
hard part, the kids. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, God, please just help me, because I was a little sad about it. But it was just mostly about them. Like, honestly, I stayed there so long because of the children. Like, most of those children who were in my class this year, I had them when they were 1 year old. So, yeah, and some of their siblings. So I'm like, okay.
How did you deal with the detachment?
It's hard. But with technology now, those parents find you and they keep in touch with you forever. God had already set it up, He told me to make a video, and I had some of their parents' numbers. So make a video saying goodbye. I told them, I said, in the video, I said, "You did nothing wrong." I said, and then we did some affirmations that we do everything. So I kept it like how we usually keep things. Like I told them, "You're strong. You'll keep doing what you gotta do." And then the funny thing is, I sent that video out to their parents, and they were like, "Oh, they were crying," but the parents were like, "I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you did this. I know, I didn't say nothing because I just know I wanted you to be with my child, but that was selfish of me." And basically said, "Thank you for everything, but I'm proud and glad that you're moving forward, onward and upward." The kids sent videos back, speaking into my life, like, You keep, yes, yeah. I'm so happy for you. And then, we had affirmations that we would do every day. And they just started saying those affirmations that we would do. And I think at that moment, like, it helped me, like, okay, they're going to be fine. I knew they would, but I felt like, I think this is how moms feel. Like, if something happened, like, um, they're going to be fine, but you're still going to miss them so much because you've been with them so long, but it's time to keep going.
Okay, so you're in the job, you're working, it's going good, and so then what happened?
My training, they're like, yeah, you're going to be teaching social studies, and it's called CHS, so it's civics, history, and science. And then I teach music and PE. So instead of just like one thing, we all have our roles that we do. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, civics. I haven't done that in so long. That's how I'm thinking, but it worked out. Then.
So they're treating it more like high school when you're rotating classes. Huh? Okay.
So I was like, okay, but that was a different part. So a while ago, I would have a problem with change, but I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. But me, I dress up to make the class fun. So I'm like, oh, this would be perfect. I know exactly what I'm going to do. So they had me sit in one of the lessons. One of the teachers were teaching. They had me sit in the class with her to see how she was teaching the class. And so when I came out of the class, they're like, so they asked me, like, what would you do in that class? Or what would you do in your class to make it different? And I'm like, well, they were learning about the Statue of Liberty, and I said, I would totally come dressed as a Statue of Liberty, and as a craft, we would make it so they could remember. I said, they were kind of focusing on slides a lot, and I'm not like that. Like, I do use them, but it was a long time they were sitting, and I saw kids with their heads down, and I was kind of like, okay, no, this can't happen like this. They're too little, So they were like, oh, yeah, we like that, So my first lesson was...
So then they saw it was your calling.
Yes. So the first time I taught the civics class, they were learning about the presidents. So I have this George Washington wig, and the kids come from outside when they come into civics class. So I went inside, and there was a song playing, and I started putting on the wig, and the kids were looking like George Washington. Like, you could hear that they knew who it was, and then from there it's history, like everything every time now. So now they're like, well, who are you going to be now, or where are we going to go? Because when we do our lessons, I try to make them, we travel. Like, for the holidays, we did holidays around the world. Every day, we either boarded a train, a plane, or a bus, and we went to that different country or city for the holidays. So after that, like, every day now, they're expecting, like, what are we going to do next? What are you going to be now, So I like that because it gets them interested. And the parents are saying, like, yeah, they never been this happy about it. Not saying that the teachers wasn't teaching, but it's just like, now it's more like, okay, this is not just a class we're just going to sit in. She's actually going to take us somewhere.
And they're retaining it.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you're in your job. It's going good. They love your innovation. So where do we go from here?
I got an email asking if I can have a meeting, and we picked the time, and I had a meeting and found out that someone had donated the money for me to pay for my school to gift me $3,000. $3,000.
So that your degree will be released.
And I actually found out instead of it being $3,500, it went down to $3,050 now. So it's even less than I would have had to pay. So what I probably will owe, even if that, $50 from my own account.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Look at God. So, the pandemic happened, you kind of start feeling unhappy, like you're outgrowing this, and that was very unusual. So, you start praying about it. People approach you, you get your dream job, then it's like, well, you're going to have to do this until your degree is released. And just for your obedience, now God has released it and you had to pay $50.
Yeah. Oh, but so last Sunday, we were, how we opened up our hands and we said, open our heavens because God will give us the abundance from heaven. So, and I remember Dr. GreGory saying, just ask God for it. And at that time, I wasn't even thinking about that. I just said, God, I don't want to limit you and think too small. I said, whatever you have for me, my arms are open and ready for it. And that's what I said. And that was it. And then Tuesday is when I got the message about the amount being paid for. My name is Nikia Robinson, and this is my testimony.